Hello Yogi, welcome back to the Yoga Clinic. My name is Becca. Today we're going to do something a little differently. So I'm starting this new series called Tutorials where we will break down different postures, how to get into them, common misalignments that I see in these postures and how to correct them. I'm also going to talk more broadly about technique in yoga. So not just how to protect your body in certain groups of postures, but also common mistakes that I see people making in my in-person classes that over time can lead to injury. So this series is good for you as a practitioner to deepen your understanding of anatomy and the asana itself. And if you're a teacher, hopefully this will help you teach your students a little better about proper alignment and proper muscular engagement for optimum well-being and longevity of your practice. So for today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about tripod headstand. So if you are an intermediate yoga student, you've probably seen in class an offering to go up into a headstand. Headstand is a really good introductory posture for an inversion practice because you have a lot of points of contact and it's relatively stable compared to the other inversions that are more advanced, like forearm stand or handstand. But if you're able to really get a good tripod headstand or any kind of headstand, it teaches you what needs to happen in the core and low body in order to deepen your inversion practice. So we are going to break down two different entries into headstand today. I keep saying that. Into headstand today, tripod headstand being one of them. And then we're going to talk about how to find that line, what needs to be engaged properly. And then as you deepen your inversion practice, these same principles of the core and low body will apply. So hopefully if you found your way to this tutorial, you've warmed up a little bit in preparation. So good warm-ups for headstand would be warming up the core, maybe with Navasana. You may want to work with some cat-cow to make sure the spine is limber. And then maybe in tabletop, you can even find some long extension of the legs with full activation of the front and back of the leg, pointing the toe. And this is going to teach you that the legs need to be nice and firm in the inversion. Okay, so pause the video and do that if you're not warm yet. Tripod headstand when you're ready. Welcome back. So tripod headstand, in my opinion, is the more accessible headstand. And I know some people may disagree with me on that. I'm going to tell you if you're ready to do tripod headstand. How do you know if you're ready to do tripod headstand? So let's find our tripod first, and I think that'll give us a lot of clues. So coming to face the front of your mat, we want to find hands underneath the shoulders, and then we're going to place the head at the top of an imaginary triangle here, with the two hands being the two bottom corners of the triangle, an equilateral triangle, if you will. So this brings me to my first misalignment that I see a lot of beginning headstanders do, is that they will bring their head too close to their hands. So it's more of a straight line than it is a equilateral triangle. So come up onto the tiptoes and then bend your knees a lot so that you're in a malasana, a squat. Place your hands underneath your shoulders, and then we're going to lift the hips, so straightening the legs, and place the head down in between the hands. From here, you may want to come up into a supported crow shape, bakasana, with your head down on the floor and the knees hugging the triceps. Good. So we're on the tippy toes here. We want to be sure that we are resting on the crown of the head. That's here. So it's not on top of the head, nor is it on the occiput, the back of the head. It's right here. And keep in mind that for tripod headstand, we want to have equal weight in the hands and the head. So place your head down on the crown, and then lift the hips, and you can even hover the knees if you want to rest them on the shoulders or on the triceps. So if this is difficult for you to find this shape, either from tightness in the hamstrings, in the groin, or from any discomfort in the neck, it's not time for you to practice this posture yet. But if you can find that tripod, that is your foundation. And so this tells me right away that you're able to go at least a little bit deeper. So from our tripod foundation, we're going to find our supported Bakasana with the head down, but our legs in a crow shape, a low crow. So find your tripod, lift your hips, and then set the knees on back of the triceps. Good. So this is going to bring us to my next common misalignment that I see in this posture. So go ahead and bring your feet down. When I see people begin to bring their knees onto their hands and to transition the weight into their head to find the balance, the elbows begin to splay out wide like this. And what this is going to do is turn the shoulders into internal rotation. And so we're not able to fully engage the muscles of the back if this is happening. And there's a lot of pinching going on in the neck. In addition to that, your base becomes unstable. So there's a reason why we chaturanga with the forearms over the wrists, because it optimally engages the muscles around the wrist and it's more stable. So we want to go for that 90-degree bend here as well. And when we splay the elbows out wide, we're introducing instability in the base of that triangle. We're going to end up putting more weight onto the head and probably rolling over. So I want you to keep that in mind. We're going to find our tripod base again. So in addition to finding an equilateral triangle, we want to, as soon as the knees begin to lift into the triceps, we want to think about hugging the arm bones in towards midline. And you can look at your arms and make sure they look like chaturanga arms. So elbows over the wrists and hands wide. Okay, let's find our tripod base. Place your head down at the top of the triangle on the crown of the head. Begin to lift your hips and place the knees on back of the triceps. Now hug your elbows in towards midline. Take a look at your hands here and make sure that they are hugging in, elbows over wrists. Good. Shoulders should be forward of your wrists. So we're in chaturanga arms here. Now from here we're going to find our line. So we will walk the knees up towards the armpits. And as we do this, the hips begin to lift up over the shoulders. So we want the hips over the shoulders. We don't want them past the shoulders or in front of the shoulders. We want them on top of the shoulders. That's going to give us that nice straight line. So hugging the inner arms in towards each other, begin to lift hips over shoulders. So we're balancing here. Let's keep this pike or this tuck here. Just balancing here. So we don't have to find anything else. We're just finding hips over shoulders, keeping the knees in tight. Good, come on down. So that is the next stop on our journey to headstand. The next and last piece is the legs. And as we bring the legs into the equation, the core becomes much more important. So before we go upside down, I just want to explain what happens in the core during inversions. So if we have an unengaged core or unengaged legs, it introduces wobbliness. And so any adjustment that we make in our hands or in our base is going to then be mirrored in the core, and it's very easy to fall out of the posture. So if you want to be able to hold a pose strongly and breathe, like an asana, then you have to be able to find the proper activation in all of the muscle groups to maintain the line. So it's harder than standing up. It's easy to flop around, relax everything as we stand. Not that it's good, but we're not going to fall over if our core isn't tight in a given moment. Not so in inversions. So your core obviously is your abs, but it also consists of the fascia and muscles on top of and in between your ribs. So we want to think about drawing the low belly in and up, finding our Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha. And then as we find this flying upward, Uddiyana meaning flying upward, we want to find a drawing downwards of the ribs. So practice that right now, drawing the low belly in and up. And then the ribs want to flare outwards. Let's try to pull the rib cage down, drawing the bottom ribs towards the top to your ASIS, those pubic points on each side of your hips. Good. And then can you breathe here, keeping the ribs knitting in towards midline? So we're contracting not just the belly, but also the chest. So keeping everything taut. And then for the legs, so we're going to do these two pieces together. For the legs, we want to make sure that everything is engaged. So pointing the toe is usually the best. You can flex. I find pointing the toe creates more length and the energy becomes more extended, which is really good for finding that line. So standing up, we'll just shift the weight into one foot. And let's take the right foot out in front of us. Point the toe, and then lift the toe off of the mat slightly. Think about squeezing your quads to lift your kneecap. Pointing the toe a lot, finding calf muscle activation to pull the heel back towards your butt. Good, now let's take that behind us and try again. Good, and then here you'll feel the glute activating. So in our inversions, we want our glutes active, but it's in between these two postures, this extended and flexed hip. It's actually going to be a neutral hip. So it'll be balancing act between the core in the front and the glutes squeezing in the back. In addition to that, we want to find internal rotation of the thighs. So again, with the right foot, let's point the toe. Find internal rotation. Think about spinning the top of your thigh in towards midline. Good, so that's exaggerated internal rotation. And then let's go external rotation, turning the top of the thigh outward so that the inner ankle moves towards front, and then come back to neutral. So the legs will be squeezing together. So we internally rotate, squeeze. It allows us to engage our adductors. We point the toes and then pull them back with the calf muscles and the butt in the back. Okay, let's put everything together. Coming down, we'll find our tripod shape once again. So nice wide hands. I'm going to recap for you. Underneath the shoulders, we'll come onto the tippy toes. And then again, anywhere that you need to stop along this journey is a great place to practice, work the foundation, make sure you're solid until moving to the next step. Okay, hands are down. Walk the feet in so that you can place the crown of your head at the top of your triangle, bending the knees, and then shifting the weight into the crown. Lift your hips, place the knees on the back of your elbows. Take a look at your forearms. Make sure they're stacking over the wrists, elbows drawing in towards midline, making a 90-degree bend between the forearm and the upper arm. Now, from here, we're going to find our tuck. We're shifting so that the shoulders are over the hips, drawing the knees in towards the chest. Good, so the core is working here. We're going to try to keep this core activation as we bring the legs up towards the ceiling. So nice tight core, belly in and up. Rib cage draws down. Slowly, let's begin to extend the legs, finding one point on the ground that you can focus your gaze on. Good. Once your legs are extended, finding that point. And when the legs are extended, the core is very important, and it's also harder to maintain. Belly in and up, rib cage down, collarbones spread wide, shoulder blades spread wide, point your toes. Internally rotate your thighs. Squeeze your butt. Good, hips stay over the shoulders. Begin to bend your knees back into the pike. Knees onto the elbows, drawing the elbows in, and then setting the toes down. Finding a child's pose, rest your forehead. When you're ready, let's come up. All right, really good job with that. I hope it went well for you. So that's one way to get into tripod headstand. A lot of times in yoga classes, it will be cued from a wide-legged forward fold. And the reason why is that your hips are already lower because your feet are wider. So you can bring your chest and your hips lower. And then so it's not so much of a falling forward to get your forehead down in front of your hands. So you're welcome to play around with that. Wide-legged forward fold, we would line up the hands underneath the shoulders, and depending on your flexibility, that may be between your feet It may be forward of your feet. Probably it's forward of your feet. And then finding the base and moving from there. So the last headstand that I want to show you today is our classic headstand, sirsasana B. I always get them confused, sirsasana A versus B. I'll put it in the notes after I look up which one's which. But anyway, so the non-tripod variation. We're going to rest, again, it's the same. So we're going to go quicker this time. It's the same base, except instead of hands underneath the shoulders, elbows are under shoulders. We'll create that basket with the hands to cradle the occiput, the back of the head, and then we'll move into the same cueing from there. So this one is easier to come into from a kneeling position. Let's place the elbows down underneath the shoulders, about shoulder width height or width apart. Interlace the fingers to make that basket. Some people will put the pinky fingers underneath the hands. I'm told that that's actually safer because if you roll forward, there's less chance that your pinky gets caught under and twists. It doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure that it's a firm basket. Fingers are interlaced, and then we'll place the crown of the head down about at the wrists so that when we roll forward, the hands can cradle the back of your head. So placing the crown of the head down, making sure that you can grip the back of your head with your hands, your thumbs. And then let's begin to lift the knees. So this time there's no supported crow involved. We begin to tiptoe the toes towards the face. That's why I think that this headstand's actually a little bit more challenging because there's a lot more control involved and balance involved in the entrance. So we're in this short down dog. Hamstrings may be talking to you, so you may need to warm them up quite a bit before trying this. And then we're going to try to find our tuck pike from here. So bringing one knee into the chest, bring the other knee into the chest. So this is quite challenging. The transfer of weight into the hand, or into the head from the feet is, I think it takes a little bit more coordination in this variation of headstand. So, okay, so we're here, our hips are over our shoulders. Let's find the core here. And then we'll begin to extend the legs, keeping the legs firm. Pointing through the toes, pull your low belly in, draw your rib cage down. Hug your upper arm bones in towards midline, trying not to let the elbows splay out. So you'll notice that we are in a triangle shape again. The head being the top of the triangle, and the elbows forming the base. So the wider the elbows go apart, the more unstable the base of the triangle is going to be. So just keeping that in mind. Now from here we can find maybe a pike, keeping the hips over the shoulders, pointing through the toes, and then we might come all the way down, and again, resting in child's pose.